Hey, thanks for checking in on my channel. I am your carnivore curmudgeon, and as a reminder, like I do in each video, I am an actual carnivore, but I am not an actual curmudgeon mostly. And today I come to you with a question. Have you ever thought about eating with your fingers? I don't mean have you ever considered eating with your fingers. We've all done that. Think about how just as a rudimentary instinct that we have as babies, when we learn to reach out and control our hands and grab something, what is the first thing a baby wants to do? They want to put it in their mouth. They want that next sensory aspect to what it is they're holding, or perhaps it's just to learn to sustain our own life. But when it comes to eating with our fingers, I don't know if I had ever really thought too deeply about it until recently. I have heard the saying before, you eat with your eyes, and that's why culinary geniuses bring to you beautiful platters that just are so appealing to the eye before we dive in and eat what they've prepared. I have certainly had the smell of food to make me hungry, and I'm sure you have too. Just smelling something delicious that's cooking can really trigger your taste buds and those jets back here that go off when we anticipate something delicious we're about to eat. How about the sound of food? Anybody ever get hungry just hearing bacon sizzle in a pan? There's something really amazing about the sound of food sizzling as it cooks. And then of course, taste. We all know the correlation of taste when it comes to our food. But what about our fingers? There's that fifth sense, the feeling of touch. I know in polite society, we're taught as much as possible to eat with a fork and a knife and to chew our food thoroughly and to chew our food with our mouth closed, and all of those social norms that are certainly appropriate for the right setting. But we don't always eat all of our food in front of other people. Sometimes we're just in front of our close family, sometimes we're by ourselves, and there is something very significant to consider about eating with your fingers. So I went to the everywhere present, seemingly all-knowing internet, and I looked up some articles about the psychology of eating food with your fingers as opposed to eating with utensils. And I learned some interesting things for consideration. I want to throw a few of them at you right now. There are nerve endings in our fingers, first of all, that many purport to help stimulate digestion by signaling your stomach that you're ready to eat. Makes sense to me. Everything else works in conjunction. If we can eat with our eyes first, if we can get hungry by smelling, then why wouldn't it make sense that our nerve endings in our fingers are talking to our taste buds, are talking to our brains, are talking to our stomach, that something good is coming our way. Think about fingers themselves. Number two, it's an evolutionary development. Now, I'm not talking about the evolution of man. That's a completely different discussion, but we all know that humans and animals alike evolve to adapt to their situation. And certainly 10 fingers serves us well when it comes to feeding ourselves. Number three, it can help us when we eat with our fingers to manage our food portions and to give us a sense of fullness that may be slowed by eating with utensils. It may be a minor thing or it may be a significant thing, but it can lend to a sense of fullness because of the whole experience that we're getting when we eat. Another thing that people have surmised is that the flora, the bacteria in our hands and our fingers and our palms, which is not poisonous to us if it's natural, if it's not something that's introduced from outside of our own bodies, can help us in digestion as it's mixed and mingled with the food we put in our mouth. One thing that certainly can be true if we're conscious of it is that eating with our hands can slow the shoveling factor. That's my words. That was not in an astute journal that I read, but it can keep us from just mindlessly shoveling something down. And it can help us to regulate our blood sugar because we're not eating necessarily as fast, or we're not eating as much. And then our fingers are hygienic, and common sense would tend to tell us it's exactly the opposite of that. But we're mindful of washing our hands, especially if we're going to use them to eat. So it's perfectly hygienic to use your fingers and hands to eat food. And the last one on this short list, and there are more, is it can help us from burning our tongue. Have you ever stuck something in your mouth with a fork or with a spoon that scalded the roof of your mouth or burned your tongue and ruined the rest of the meal and maybe the next several? Eating with your fingers can help to mitigate that, because your fingers are going to tell you how hot that food is before it reaches the more sensitive part of our mouth. And to sum all of this up, I thought this person just put it beautifully in an article by Emily Johnson at epicurious.com called "I Love Eating with My Hands." And this is what she had to say. Eating is sensory, and in using your hands, you take the sensory experience to another level. You add another whole sense, touch. Since so much of taste and enjoyment of food is about texture, your hands function as another way of exploring the feel, the consistency, the makeup of your food. So in the carnivore way of eating, just like any other way of eating, be mindful to eat with your hands sometimes. It's very satisfying, and sometimes it really hits the spot when a fork and a knife just won't do. Now let's take a look at some ways to feed our face, to fill our phalanges, to use some finger food to satisfy that empty spot in our tummies. And I hope you'll leave some suggestions of your own down in the comments, because there are only a few here, but there are plenty to choose from. Like, for instance, can you guess which one's my favorite? Bacon. Crispy bacon on a plate, warmed up, even cold sometimes, can just be a great finger food. And it can help keep us out of stuff we shouldn't be eating. How about deviled eggs? Deviled eggs are a treat anytime, in my opinion. Make some of these at the beginning of the week and keep them in a container. And these things can really come in handy when we need to reach for something. And while we're on the subject of eggs, they don't have to be deviled. You can just hard-boil eggs, put a little salt and pepper on them, and you got yourself a quick finger food snack. How about fried chicken? I have another video on how I make this carnivore fried chicken with pork rinds. And whether it's cold or whether it's hot, I enjoy it as a quick snack very often. And speaking of pork rinds make a great snack. They're quick and easy. Did I already mention bacon? Yeah, I think I may have mentioned it. And here's one of my new favorites. You've heard of steak fries? Well, this is a whole new carnivore take on steak fries. Just take an already cooked steak and cut it up into French fry size pieces. Now you can heat this steak up with your preferred method, or you can eat it cold. But what I do is I take a small cup, put some butter in it, and then melt that butter. Then take my steak fries, put them in that cup, and then just dip the steak fries into the butter and consume. It may not seem possible, but they're even better than they look. And here's some easy peasy cheesy bites. Just put some shredded cheese into a muffin pan, put it in the oven at 370. After you add some bacon. Fry that bacon up nice and crisp, put it into the muffin pan, and after you bake it for about 20 minutes, you got some really great cheese bites. And if you've been around the low-carb community for more than about 5 minutes, you know that there's all kinds of chaffle recipes. Chaffles make a really good, easy finger food. Make several at the beginning of the week. And you can pop them into the toaster to heat them up, put some cheese or some cream cheese on them. They're delicious. And if all else fails, you can always have, some bacon. Yeah, some bacon. Whatever your personal preference, keep something handy to reach for with your fingers to feed your face. It's not only tasty, but it's satisfying. And send me your ideas to share with others.